what we're going to move on to now is sort of a roundtable session. So there'll be 3 more short presentations from Mark Grigg, Gavin O'Loughlin and Rob Robinson, and then following that there'll probably be 40 to 45-minute discussions with a couple of questions that will be led from myself and Fionn, and then open up to the audience. So I'd like to welcome up first Mark Grigg, who's Director of Sport at St Felix School, and also a professional doctorate candidate with us here at Leeds Beckett. So Mark, over to you. 5 minutes?
Thanks,
5 minutes?
Less
than 5 minutes.
Less, which for anyone that knows me knows is a challenge.
Yeah.
I can be fairly comfortable, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you too much about the programme, and there's a reason for that. As Kev said, I'm actually currently carrying out the professional doctorate programme here with Leeds Beckett and gaining masses from it, but actually my whole professional doctorate is around. It said on their talent development environments, school-based talent development environments, and as such, I started in a new role at St Felix School in September, and you'll see on I think my second or third slide, all I've put up there is it's under construction. But I'm going to offer you a few comments on that, and that conversation that just came out of that question, Kev will know, is key to my thinking and the reasons that I'm looking into what I'm looking in. Very quickly into a bit of my background. In the last 5 years, I've been a head of boys sport and a head of rugby at St Joseph College in Ipswich. Rugby's a bit of their sort of background and performance. Rugby is certainly would have been used in a language of performance, and elite sport would have been used a lot in that environment. During COVID, I started this programme, and shortly following commencing the programme of study here, I think actually a lot of the way I was looking at things supported my career progression into an assistant director of sport role, retaining the head of rugby role, and then I moved on and started in September at St Felix School as head of sport. We are a small independent school. We're on the Suffolk coast. Half of our catchment area, it is a competitive marketplace, half of our catchment area is the North Sea. We're a co-educational day and boarding school, and we are ages 3 to 18. Just sitting up as we were saying hello as we sat down this morning, I know there's someone here from a small school in North Wales, I think they offered, where they said, well, actually we don't have a sports hall. We are a small, so our year 7 has got 15 students in it. Our year 8 has got 17 students in it. Year 9 through 13 are slightly larger, but straight away, coming from an environment where the focus was performance sport, I found myself in an environment where we had to combine age groups just to get a team out. So that's changed my thinking as well. I've said it's under construction. A lot of the questions, a lot of the perhaps the contradictions that I'm working with, the largest one is the performance sport, the focus on performance sport. If people in education ask the question, do league tables make us focus on teaching to pass exams as opposed to teaching to develop and further someone's learning, then sport in schools has done exactly the same. Certainly, since we've seen a growth in professionalism, I think a lot of us have made the mistake, and probably me in the past including, in looking up to the professional game and trying to water it down to deliver it to younger athletes, as opposed to building something up. And equally, and Lorcan touched on this, Kev touched on it, the lens with which I'm questioning the success criteria against which we judge our programme, and continually questioning that. For the vast majority of us, it is national success. It's success in competitions. It's our win and loss column on school sports or the tweets we can put out at the weekend. Ultimately, that's made us focus on very few students, and it's made us focus on who they are now as opposed to who they might be in the future. I'm not here to teach anyone to suck eggs, but we all understand the conversations that started to happen there about early development, and it was the goldmine effect, where we saw that conversation starting about whispering talent versus shouting talent, talent for now, talent for the future. We need to focus on development, and that's where my research focuses on talent development environments, because as far as I'm concerned, we are schools, we are educators, and our focus should be on development. Performance is part of that conversation, but it is only part of that conversation. So that's a little bit about me, not a huge amount about my environment, but hopefully more will come out in the conversation.
Thank you, Matt. Do you want to sit down and we'll tell everyone we'll finish? Gavin O'Loughlin, who is head of PE at a state school, so Bishop Young Academy. So maybe a slightly different angle from this as well. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you. So yeah, as Kev said, slightly different angle coming from the state school. I've been head of PE at Bishop Young Academy for the last 7 years now, and we have looked at the hybrid model in terms of the curriculum and changing that over time. And it was really heartwarming regarding the Kev and Lorcan's speech in terms of what you spoke about in terms of the philosophies and the way that you're trying to push it forward. That is something that we're trying to push forward massively in our school as well. But today I'm going to focus on physical competency and the physical literacy of our pupils in our academy. And over the course of the last 13 years that I've worked at this academy, in terms of the context of the school, this has been in a heavily deprived area in the top 2% of the bottom 2% of the country, where 75 to 80% of students don't do any sport outside of school. So there are a lot of barriers in place, such as parental push, local clubs in the area not providing on meeting needs to the pupils around our area, and other aspects of that have stopped that in terms of moving forward. So I work in school, and the team that I work with have tried to push that massively moving forward over the last 3 to 4 years in terms of moving towards a hybrid curriculum, but also looking at students coming from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3 initially and seeing what happens in those parameters. So I've tried to work closely with Key Stage 2 in terms of going into feeder primary schools. Unfortunately, that work is only limited due to resources and obviously my teaching load, etc. But the schools that I've got into, sometimes the curriculum is not fit for purpose, it's quite limited, it's very narrow, and isn't focused specifically on what we want to see by the time they get to high school. Again, looking at curriculum, since I started as a teacher 13 years ago, I've always looked at teaching a traditional curriculum, so through the sports specific model, and over the last 4 or 5 years looking at research and linking up with Leeds Beckett and speaking to different people and different stakeholders, that mindset has changed. We want to move more towards a concept curriculum whereby students come in, we work with them, build the relationships, build the capital culture, give them opportunities outside of the walls of Seacroft and take them further afield. So that's just a short, brief context of our school. So as I mentioned before, we've worked with Leeds Beckett on multiple occasions, but we wanted to look specifically at physical competence, how our students move. And we worked with Kev, we worked with Dave Morley and Tom Van Rossum as well, in terms of looking at some of the resources that they've got on offer, in terms of looking at physical competency specifically in terms of the fundamental movement skills of students. So again, working with Key Stage 2 and looking at their curriculums moving forward, we've managed to build a platform whereby when students come into the academy in Year 7, this is the first thing that they are exposed to. So that is fundamental movement patterns, developing their movement skills straight from the off. And we're not focusing on that narrow sport-specific curriculum where sometimes students have not experienced that sport anyway. So we implemented this through a pilot scheme with Leeds Beckett, whereby we had some sessions at Leeds Beckett talking to specialist staff, and then we went away and we developed this, developed into our own curriculum. We had some feasibility observations whereby staff came in and watched us teach, and then we developed that further into our own curriculum, whereby now we're delivering this to Year 7, 8s, and some Year 9s, depending if they still need it after. So how it works is 7 and 8s get exposed to this at the start of the year, and then Year 9s, if they've developed and moved on, we can start to push them more towards a specific, the long-term athlete development talks that we mentioned earlier, and push them towards clubs and other areas where they can continue that athlete development. Sorry, my mouth's going dry. So how did that look? So these are the resources we used. I'm not going to talk too much about those because I know they will be mentioned later. But the Movement for Sport Play Kit provided the resources that we use within the lessons, along with the Rampage resources that provide that framework. We found it was really good for ECTs as well, because it gave that structure of a lesson planning performance, but also provided the strength and condition element that is missed a lot from our students in our context in our academy. That's just an example of the framework that we used in terms of lesson planning, coupled with the resources that we used, and then also the strength and condition elements that we put into the lessons as well. And then we tried to always bring it back to a movement focus in a games-based scenario. This wasn't always sport specific. It could have been dependent on the group that you're teaching, and also dependent on the sport that you might want to focus on as well. So again, impact, we've done a lot of student voice and asked the students in terms of, it was mentioned earlier about the wellbeing things that you do at GSAL in terms of what clubs do you play for outside of school. We started off with 17% of students partaking in schools, in sports outside of school, which has risen this year to 24, and hopefully again next year it will keep increasing. But again, still trying to get to Key Stage 2 and go to primary schools and work with those in terms of their curriculum offer as well in our local area. And also a massive push and increase in extracurriculars happened over the last 2 years, specifically at lunchtimes, and putting a big emphasis on that. Come and try, come and play, and building those relationships over time. Again, more impact is that the curriculum offer has been used to support student profile as well. So the move to sport play kit has also allowed us to profile students and identify physiologically how they move, and then we can impact that whether we set pupils or we put them in nurture groups to develop even further, moving beyond that. And it's now fully embedded in Year 7 and 8, which is, and we're going to keep moving that forward as time goes on. That's me finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gavin. And last we've got Rob Rollinson from Queen Ethelburgers. So Rob's head of sport at QE. Last of these short presentations.
Morning all. So just a little bit about us this morning. So I'll chat a little bit about our PE curriculum, what we offer in there, and then more so then going down an individualised performance pathway. So our curriculum, we said there's three sort of groups within each year group. What we try to do is offer as much breadth as we can, but keep it sort of unique to the individual, and try and offer what that student needs out of that programme at that certain sport within a certain time of the year. So take rugby for example, the top set they're probably usually like, that's what who's going to represent your school, they'll play your fixtures. The sets 2 and 3, then that's where it starts to differ a little bit. You've got the aspirational kids that want to be in that group, but perhaps they're not quite good enough at the time. But then there are also them students that don't really want to, they like the game but they don't want to represent the school competitively. So what we do at that stage there, we'll then sort of make like a contact group and a non-contact group. That non-contact group is more based around fun, and again a lot around functional movement within that. The sets 1 and 2 sort of the contact side of it, they want to represent the school. That's what they want to do. They're driven to be successful in that. That's what kids want to do in that sort of area. But I'm more interested about set 3. When I'm sort of designing staffing and things like that, I'll always go on set 3. I choose to always go with them students. Them students are the ones that aren't really motivated by sport. We have probably 54, I think there's 54 different nationalities in school. Some of them students arrive off the plane and they get given this rugby ball and it's like, what the hell is that? Never seen one before in my life. So it's thinking of ways of engaging them students into making it fun, getting out what is the outcome of that lesson for that student. Well, 1, to get him moving, 2, to develop catching and throwing skills, and there's all sorts of different ways you can do that. Stay away from the traditional sort of rugby coaching. It was a lot of the time I struggled with one year group, and they was like, well, I just don't get this game. So what's wrong with the game of tig? Then you've got to start tigging with the ball. Then start putting an obstacle course in with a rugby ball to use that element of game of tig as well. So just thinking of ways of getting them students moving, and then again on what Kevin just sort of spoke about there, connecting with them, find out about them, what makes them tick. Let's make that fun for that student. So the other students within school as well, we're looking to maximise their potential, which ties in nicely. And our school motto is to be the best I can with the gifts I have. Some have more gifts than others. That's just the way it is. But what I'm interested in is, let's tap into that potential. Let's find out what makes them tick. Let's get the best out of them students before they leave. Opportunities that go on and that are presented for the kids as well is, we're very, very fortunate that the site that we have, I don't know if you've been to our school or not, that some of the facilities, the world class. In summer, we break up next Friday, so we've got some schools and pre-season camps that come in. Newcastle United, Everton, Chelsea, they all use our site because it is world class facilities, which then makes our job slightly easier, but we've got then the capability to offer a little bit more. And I'm big on that bottom one there, investment individual, not on the team. We designed a performance pathway off the back of that motto, and I was often sort of talked about managing upwards. I wanted to get rid of the expectation of, we've got to go and beat this school, we've got to win trophies, we've got to be this, we've got to be that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the individual, getting the best out of the individual. And when they come into our school, but then when they leave, have they maximised their potential, and most of all, have they enjoyed it. So just touching on our performance pathway, this is a sort of slide that a little presentation that I do to some of our students that are new to the school, certainly in years sort of 10 and above. We run a performance pathway, and it is about the individual development. I want them to get better, but then they're in a drive. That's what's going to get them to make the team better. Sensitive, isn't it? So develop students within there, giving them extra time within their timetable. So students from year 6 to 9 will have 3 PE lessons, but then we also offer 2 enrichment slots. And in them enrichment slots, this will sit in there, and they get to choose which sport they do. We run a pathway in 8 different sports, and they get, like I said, they'll get to choose in there what sport that is. But just to push them on, just to give them that extra time within their sport that they really want to do. Within that, then there's obviously periodised learning, blocking different syllabuses that they'll follow, and it's just about planning the year and planning so that they get the very best out of themselves. At the end of each term, what we'll do, we'll present them with a self-reflection sheet. A lot of students might not be able to perform the skill, but they might have the knowledge of how to be able to do it. So what is really great is that when they fill that in, we get to find out a little bit about the student. What you're presenting, has that sunk in? Can they perform the skill? Well, not quite just yet, but they are bang on, they know what they're going on about, which is really interesting. And I think that then comes down to more about trying to hit them more with some functional movement, more skill-based stuff. And then it also links them, you can sit down with the coach, you can have then, that's where the IDP comes from, and then it sort of maps out their skill development from there going forward. We use a range of video analysis. We video all our games, so our training. So Frogbox is the cricket that we've invested in recently, and then the Vale with the football. But then Huddle, we use that quite a lot with basketball. Because we've got great links over in America now, where we're sending students out there on scholarships as well. So it's a great tool to be able to just share game footage and highlights, which then obviously presents opportunities for the students going further afield in school. S&C, run by the wonderful Fiona and our Alan. And what we try and do there is sport specific. What does that sport need? I'm going to stand on this in a minute, sorry. So what that sport needs, and obviously under the guidance of these guys here, they're doing it very well. Individual programmes, sport-specific programmes, but then testing over the years so that we're continually matching and progressing and see what they're doing, and hopefully, like I said, progressing. Nutrition workshops are in there as well, because I think that's really important. And it's not just about... So one of the things we did, or what the old director of sport did before I took this job, we designed this pathway together, and then it was like, right, we'll talk about fuel because we need to fuel the kids because they're going to be a little bit more tired. Like, right, well, we'll give them this card and they can get extra food. Well, Fish and Chip Friday was brilliant because you get all these rugby lads and they're coming out and like, I'm like, this is just not right. So we're actually trying to educate the kids to watch actually going in their body a little bit better now. So when there's lunchtime sessions on, they'll get a real good pack up. They'll get some sort of protein-based shake with it. There's milk, there's all sorts in there, and it's just pretty good gear. But then psychological as well. We offer different things, just to sort of widen their horizons about where they're learning from about their sport as well. So podcasts, things like that. And just looking to develop independent thinkers. Let them own their programme. Give them the tools and the capabilities to be able to just push themselves on rather than use them behind them and giving them a kick up the backside all the time. Like I said, we are very fortunate in what we've got, which then enables us to be able to push our boundaries a little bit further. But then, didn't even touch it. Did not even touch it, Kev. Is that you? You taking it out? So for this is a big one. This is a big one, and Kev touched on it before there. Care and understanding. We all have problems in our own lives, anyhow. In an independent school, like I said, we've got students from 54 different countries. We've got a large forces community. We need to know what's going on about them, so that when we go across that line into a classroom or onto a pitch, you put your game face on. I want teachers that are going to deliver, teachers and coaches that are going to deliver fun lessons, that's caring, and that they're going to get the best out of themselves. Because, you know, like Russians, Ukrainians, forces students, there's a whole lot going on in this world that we don't know about, and they're dumped in our school just to be cared and looked after. So they've got their own battles as well. So caring and understanding is that white line mentality. Let's get your game face on, but make it fun and engaging whilst they're there. So what do we expect from you? Just real good people. We want you to be on good time, be really coachable, good manners, be focused and ready to work. So this links a little bit to what you were saying before though. Is that really success? Well, it is individually. It is for them students that have gone on and left our school. But but the thing of success, so that's success from a pathway and on an individual development thing. My success is then 80% of the students that aren't on that pathway is, are they moving? Are they then, like what Lorcan says, are they then going to go and carry on doing PE or physical activity for the rest of their lives? So there's a lot in it. You know, I suppose we'll chat about it a little bit more now, but that's just a little bit about our school. So.
Can we have a seat, Rob? Any speakers come back and come forward, please?
Did you guys go over it?
I don't think so. I'm speaking, get out of the way. Okay, thank you for all the presentations. I haven't organised a microphone because I can talk quite loudly in your role, so yeah, we'll just make sure that we speak quite loudly. I guess the first question I'd probably like to start with is, I think in all the presentations this morning there's been a range of terms used. Obviously the conference is long-term athletic development, we've seen long-term athlete development, we've seen physical literacy, we've talked about health and well-being. Probably the question is, what are we actually trying to work towards, and is there a terminology issue going on here, and what do we think are the best terms that captures what the schools are trying to achieve? Over to you.
I think it's a tough question, and I think I'm not disillusioned with the sector because I love my job and I've been in the sector for a long time. But I think there's too much language that's different, and I think some of it's inappropriate for schools, if I'm honest with you, and I think that's causing a problem. Because for all the brilliant investment, and maybe QE are the exception, because Rob does a great job with his team, but I think there's lots of schools where more than half aren't engaged, and more than half you couldn't get the research and the data to say they're fit and strong, and they leave doing something, and they're engaged in clubs which aren't competitive clubs or training. And I think the independent sector, which is I'm speaking on behalf because I'm in it, is I think there is an issue there, because if you went from QE to the RDS Guildford to Dulwich to where we are, they're all define athleticism differently. And they all, I mean, if you ask me to define, I love PE teaching, I'm a PE teacher. And if you said, right, go define physical literacy, you know, I'm going to struggle, because I'm saturated with it. And it's so different. And I think one of the great things we can do here is just actually look to define what it means. And for us, and Kev's done this with Sam, who will speak later, who's done a brilliant job in our PE program, because one of the things I want to talk about is the role of the PE teacher in all this. But I think athleticism in GSAL, for Kev, it's are they cardio fit, are they agile, and are they strong? And we're going to build our curriculum around that. Because I love your definition, Kev, because you know I need to read more. But for all the talk over the last number of years, if you were to ask various groups and people to define athleticism, they're not going to use the word confidence. They're not. And you rarely see environments, and you rarely see the word healthy. And I think that's a problem, because they aren't just kids, they're so young. We have such an important role in those formative years. So I think for us in GSAL, I was confused by it. So I went to someone who's not as confused as me, to Kevin, go, what does it mean for GSAL? And go, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do these three things. And then we go to Sam, and Sam goes, well, I'm going to connect the primary sector and year 6 to year 7, and we're going to work off those three things. Because I'm really happy with our environment in terms of where we're not perfect, we do, but I'm really happy with the culture that's built in terms of how we cross the line, what we're like with the kids, how we speak to the children. So I think athleticism for us means that, but I think collectively, I do think it's a major problem, if I'm honest.
So just on, Lorcan mentioned earlier some sort of the recent stuff that's come out from Ofsted and DFE, and even going back about 12 months now, was the first time, certainly in my working knowledge, that Ofsted have used the term movement competency as part of their guidance on what people should be including in the curriculum. I certainly think a lot of every school I've worked at least when I've arrived, has essentially had a rotation of 6 half-termly, sometimes randomly selected, sometimes loosely connected sports that are delivered and somehow we're given this breadth of provision because of it. I've certainly started to look at our curriculums and work towards, and I tend to use the terminology physical literacy. So Ofsted uses terminology movement competency. I think within there's transferable sports skills that, depending on, there is a lot of language, and depending on how we interpret that, are transferable sports skills lost if we just use the terminology physical literacy and movement competencies. But we need to be focused as PE teachers in developing that and ultimately broadening the base of our pyramid. I would argue that a lot of what probably 90% of, so again, I'm in the independent sector, 90% of our resources at St Joseph's College probably went to 10% of our students, and we've got to try and flip that on the head. And that, as I've moved into a more senior role at a school, I'm trying to understand how we do that. I have found, talking to more senior members of staff, that, and I mentioned this to Fiona and Kev as I walked in earlier, the word athletic seems to scare some SLT members. They think we're focusing on just athletes. I think that's why we've seen the sector start to change the title of a lot of the adverts that are going out at the moment are Director of Sport and Health and Wellbeing, or Fitness and Wellbeing. A lot of the athletic development roles have now got additional, it's the same job description, but they are trying to use that language to show that they're resourcing more than just that 10%. And I think perhaps, yes, we need to define it, but I think there will be some people outside of this room that aren't related to sport that if we use the terminology long-term athletic development, will think we are focusing on that 10% as opposed to everyone.
I'll just touch on that. I think it's key, and I think, listen, thank you for putting today on, and I think it's brilliant to get everybody in a room with, you know, like-minded people that are wanting at the heart of it, just for kids to get better, kids to be active, kids to move properly. And I think the worrying thing is, and from my point of view, is, you know, I might contradict myself in what I just presented there, is I think the independent sector seems to be going, it's just, you know, at the end of the day, schools are a business, aren't they? And they're all fighting for the same people that have got that disposable money, that are in a position to send them children to an independent school. But I just think it could snowball out of control. You know, you look at some of the schools in South Africa where the rugby programs there's problems with performance enhancing drugs in school, and I'm like, the kids, do you know what I mean? The kids, they should be having fun at the end of the day. But if we can facilitate that having fun and they learn to move properly in that time with us, then we're doing our job, I suppose. But at the heart of it all, it's got to be fun and engaging. And I just worry about where this tricky period could lead to. And we don't want to get to that South African model of these kids have got to get better and bigger and faster and stronger like that, because they're in the real early parts of their lives, and they're just seeing these big outcomes of shiny professional sport that they're trying to get to. And I think if we strip it back, it's all about fundamental movement. It's about setting them on a path where they're going to get engaged and they want to stay active for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just off the back of that you just said there in terms of keeping them active for the rest of their life, and I think we can measure that in school, but we don't know what's going to happen beyond that. But just in terms of my point of view from the context that I come from, in terms of students that we serve, it's for me, it's all about giving those opportunities to play, to, you know, join the clubs. There's one example that always resonates with me. We were once driving out to a football fixture. We've got a particular boy in the school, very talented. He's not had many opportunities outside of school, and he's 100% of the opportunities until recently have been inside of school, and we've had a lot of issues around around gang culture and students hanging around school and local residents, you know, being part of that, and things happening that shouldn't do, basically. And we were driving out of school, and there were a big gang of students. I always remember having that conversation to that student: if you weren't here right now, where would you be? He said, well, I'd be there, so with these students. And that resonated with me again, because ultimately, we never know what's going to happen in terms of the future, in terms of what pathway that student might take. But I knew for that moment he was with me, he was in an organised environment where he could go and express himself, play football, and then obviously the issues might come back to later in life. But for that moment, I would control that situation and he was safe. So, yeah.
Great story.
We're going to have one more question, and then we're going to open up to a couple of questions from the audience. So we talked a lot about challenges and problems. What are potentially some strategies that you found have really worked in your practice that maybe other people in this room could implement in their own?
I'll go first. I think one of the things that I would love to chat about is, maybe after this, I feel, and this is only my own perception from my own optics and my own experiences, I'm not saying it's wrong or wrong, but I believe the culture of S&C has, since I've been teaching, and since 2003, has evolved because of teams. It's because it's involved prehab and rehab, get them strong to let them play. It's not evolved out of cultural fitness driven by a PE curriculum. And I think therefore we have a divide between amazing facilities, let's be honest, for the few, and I'm being really generic here, and apologies, and I'm sure the people aren't doing this, but he's not, and same with Fiona at QE. And therefore you've got an S&C of delivering fitness and health and culture, and you've got PE teachers who are like, well, there's a squat rack there. I've never squatted before, I've never taught Olympic lifting. And we've got all these, well, we've got Olympic lifting, we've got spin sessions, we've created such a specialist field that the people in charge of keeping children healthy and fit. Why we started the job are PE teachers. And therefore you've got PE teachers and you've got specialists, and I think there's a real bridge to cross there. And one of the things I've asked Kev to do is just to support. We've got amazing PT, we've got great practitioners. I mean, some of them are grumpy, stubborn northerners, let's be frank, they are in GSAL, but they're great running PE teachers, and I've asked Kev to upskill them. So when they walk into our fitness room or our weights room, they're not daunted by what they have to do, because he can teach a wonderful circuit lesson, and the principle of the outcome is strength. He can teach that to people, so he doesn't need to squat and to Olympic lift. And I think there's a bridge here, and I don't want to criticise S&Cers or specialists, but there's definitely a bridge to cross there, because it's not for the majority. And I know you do great work over there, I know you do, where you can actually say yourself and Al, well, all of our kids in year 9 in front squat, and I think something like that is terrific, but that's not for every school. And what do we do with all our PE teachers? So if you come into the profession and you walk into a school, you have to be able to Olympic lift, do you squat, and is that the provision for fitness? So it's evolved for good reason, and I'm not saying, you know, teamship and competition structures aren't a good thing in school. They are. I did it in school. I went to a brilliant state school where I played sports all my life and did well for a short period of time. But there's a massive proportion of kids left over, and I feel that's an issue within our sector. So I think one of the challenges, which I've only got one thing for Kev, what we do, I've asked Kev to help upskill PE teachers, and then for PE teachers to speak to Kev, he does a brilliant job there. But I'd love to hear what other people do. I'd love to offer that question to the floor after this.
In terms of strategy, it's one of the things that I've definitely found works. One of the things I would encourage everyone to look at how you can get more of it in. There is choice. Quick story, I come from a point where I went to a little prep school in Brighton Hove, Leeds, Brighton College. I had compulsory rugby and compulsory boxing back in the day. For me, that set me off on a sort of essentially lifelong love of sport, physical activity, particularly rugby. My brother meant that by the age 10 he thought he wasn't sporty. He'd been told that by staff he wasn't sporty. He actually, for different reasons, home educated. Traditional school probably wasn't for him anyway. He started his first degree at 14 years old. At 25 years old, he said, "Mark, I'm not fit. I'm not healthy. I know I'm slimmer than you, but I'm not healthy. What can I do to make sure I am fit and healthy?" And I said, "You're the same shoe size as me. Why don't we go for a jog?" And he went for a jog in my trainers and some chino shorts and a shirt. Within a year, he ran an elite marathon time. He could represent GB in the 35 to 40 category if he had time around his career. He was 25 before anyone knew he was capable of running, and by 26 before anyone knew he was capable of running an elite marathon time, because of compulsory sport. Even now, if you have, I would encourage you to look, if you have a D, E, F team playing a sport like rugby, I would ask the question, do they really want to be there? Do they aspire? If they do aspire to be higher up, have your D, E and F team. But choice to be involved in a sport that they want to be involved in, choice to be involved in different types of physical activity, will allow children to choose what's right for them at the right time, and equally, actually a bit more choice is likely to provide more breadth as well, because there's more movement through and more different types of movement by not having everyone playing rugby, hockey and cricket for 7 years on the bounce, 10 years at a time.
Because of the dynamic of students that we have and where they come from geographically as well, they're not, this is something that I'm looking at for next year, and there will be big changes within our curriculum, and we've done that already within our primary school already with what Ed's doing down there. We don't call them rugby, we call it movement. We'd rather hit so many more barriers than just pigeonhole it into that one sport. And then with our bottom set students that we chatted about before, after that first 6 weeks of that sport, that play many different formats of, they'll then move into like a functional movement through games. So we could play any different game. You know, you're on a bit of choice there. What's your focus for the lesson? What's the outcome that you want? Or what game that can you think of that can encapsulate all their movements and things like that? So I think don't be restricted by the sport, like you're saying, it's rugby term. Open your horizons of just a little bit, right, well, what does rugby give you? It's catching, it's throwing, it's movement. So what can you design in and around that for the students that don't want us to wear that just in sport?
And I think I'm probably just going to echo what everyone said, but yeah, best strategy, moving away from a skill-based curriculum into a hybrid model, more concept, to develop understanding, and then you can start to create that love of, you know, physical activity and sport in a different way, that we can get that hook, and hopefully you'll see that manifest throughout the time of school and beyond as well.
Just the last one, it's linked to Rob, and I know he's a great man, and he does it really well, because you have a clear identity of what it means over there. But I think one of the things I'd love to ask as well, which linked to this, is I think that word participation for kids can be a really dangerous thing. And actually, if we're going to call them your high performers, or your county players, or regional teams, they perform. They're all in a performance something, because they're either fulfilling potential, hitting their targets for, well, I need to be excellent at the games, or improve my speed, or want to get into this team start. But if there's boys and girls playing in a different team, or going to a club, because they're still performing. And I think the minute we go, you've got your high performance group and you've got your participation group. My qualitative head says that's dangerous. And I think the language that we're using in schools should tweak. I'm not saying drastic change is needed, but I think the minute we use the word participate in school, I feel, I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear other people's views, that people think, well, they're the shit kids. And actually, how can you build a culture of participation and a love of doing something when the perception is we're not high performing and we have a performance program? And you have that fantastic program because the kids understand your language. I just think so. I'd love to hear what the schools are doing and how they're using it. I'm just speaking from experience and my own optics, I guess. You know, I'd love there to be some change in the sector. Honestly, I really would.
And I think one of the barriers, and like I'm really open as well, you know, like if you're interested in what we do, come and see what we do, come and spend a day with us. And I'd love to go to other schools, and I think obviously the barrier within the role that we sit in is time. But, you know, if there's anything that you've probably seen, and these guys likewise, you'd be more than welcome to come and see what we do. You know, as a person too, I'd like to go and see what other people do.
Yeah, because I guess for a child, if a child's looking in, okay, so let's say you've got a year 12, a year 8 pupil, year 9 pupil looking into that athletic development. We want to be athletes. We're developing athleticism in our school, and they see participation, bottom end, and high performance at far end. I think that's not accurate to the outcome you want to get to, because I think they'll be put off by it. And I think if we're going to look at words like confidence and strength and agility, I think we just need to maybe tweak the language you use. And if you present participation one end, high performance at the end, I think that's dangerous, in my view, to achieving the outcome goal. I could be wrong, and I feel partly imposter syndrome here, because I'm not an expert in my field when it comes to your work, Kev, which is why I've got my Kev and Sam. But I'm just talking about I'm talking about that love of that generous PE teaching culture coming back in, and then aligning our wonderful specialists. And yeah, it's just my own optics. Could be wrong.
Whilst we're talking about language, and it does link to my last point, I suppose, it's something that's come up in my research, is how many of us will use a term like sport for all to define what we're trying to achieve. And there's got to be a word added in front of that which is appropriate. Like, lots of us can achieve sport for all. It's very easy. Just tell them all to go for a run. Like, it's got to be appropriate. So I think there is a lot of language, and back where we started, there's a lot of language, and there's probably more and more language coming into it. But my first area of research is looking at how we all, I'm sorry to say, how we all are talking about our sport programme. I've looked at 100 school websites, and I'm looking at the data. And the word competition comes up 1,200 times in 100 websites. The word winning comes up over 900 times. The word well-being, 32. The word health, 70. So, and that might have been mentioned 3 times on one word. But the language is important, and I think how we interact with that language. But I think it can be quite dangerous. We think that we're achieving sport for all, or we think that participation is the goal. I'd say development of everyone is the goal, and appropriate sport for all and appropriate development is certainly what I'm trying to find the success criteria against.
We have about 10 minutes. Is anyone going to open up to anyone who's got any questions?
Yeah, we spoke about the psychological side. Have any of you ever implemented a pre and post game side sheet?
I'll say no.
I've tried it.
How did it go?
So in my previous role at St Joseph's College, I think there's a huge amount, and it was a fairly basic note. I will say I think there was a huge amount of social desirability shown through the answers that the students were showing us. I don't think it was truly reflective of their psychological state pre or post game, and as a result, the reason we moved away was that we felt that the outcome didn't merit the time of a member of our staff analysing it.
I'll speak to academic we use it quite a lot with success in terms of creating your school for success and making you law can have we don't call it psychology, we call it metacognition. So within school-wise, we focus on metacognition. So we took that those one very specific, speaking about the language, we use it. Students have already introduced the PSHE sessions of metacognition, you understand what that is. So we have A5 sheets that we have pre and post, and it's called metacognition.
Thanks, Kev. I was just testing. I suspect in hindsight we hadn't done the building, so why wasn't it successful? Because we hadn't done enough on sports psychology, they didn't know enough about sports psychology to engage with the process properly. I'm sure there are some very successful work done.
Can you just press the speaker when you're sorry, I'm looking here.
Yeah, does that work? Yeah, all good. This isn't just a question for you guys. Thank you very much for your input. It's for the whole room. We're at the very bare bones of our sort of health and physical development at Warwick School at the moment. We're finding it's quite difficult to differentiate between that top level group and that bottom level group, not just on a performance basis, but just general safety and health, not just in the gym, but also in regards to cricket delivery, stride, tackle technique, and rugby, sort of all around. Is it best practice to remove those boys at a certain level and specialise with them and allow the rest to go on, or do we want to integrate, sort of hoping that lads pick it up along the way? Because again, time, people on feet, sort of areas in which we can work are quite limited. I'm just wondering, from not just you guys but anyone else in the room, is integration best to bring the best out of those people at that level, or are we looking to actually specialise and spend more time with those boys and then integrate them in after a certain few markers?
Really good question. I think bear in mind of maybe the outcome of where Kev and Sam are trying to get to, and I'm trying to support them there. I would integrate, because I feel it should be at PE level first. I think it should be built into your curriculum first as a starting point, because I reckon if you were to look at strength, agility, speed, you're going to have boys and girls who don't represent the school who will do really well in those and go, blimey, I'm super strong and I'm super fit and I'm athletic, and actually I don't play for the school, and the girl beside me does play for the school, and I didn't think I was sporty, but I am quite sporty in her legs. So I would integrate as a starting point. And then I think, personally, I think that's a more powerful message than separating from the off. And that's just my maybe PE teaching holistic at all. Could be wrong. Happy to be wrong. What do you
safety side of it, obviously you pair them up with the stronger ones and stuff, but then give them different constraints of what they can do in them sessions, you know, of what they can and can't do, the amount of passes, the amount of touches they've got to do. Just give them a different focus so that it still remains safe as a whole when you've got all the group together. I think that'd be the way to go with it. It's always difficult, isn't it, when you've got a disparity, when you've got a group and there's a big disparity of talent or strength and size within a sport such as rugby, but I think the overriding thing, as Lorcan said there, from a PE sort of sphere is the safety element of it.
Yeah, we're finding social media doesn't help as well. They're seeing some bloke who they don't know what he's on, what he does for a living, all that stuff, lifting a certain amount, being like, oh, well, I should do that, and then taking 25 grams of creatine, thinking he's going to get bigger. So that's where we're struggling at the moment. But I do appreciate the integration side of it. But then again, it's mainly just that safety side that we're mainly talking about at the moment.
Kev is set up, so there are generic health and fitness sessions, there are generic lifting sessions, there's spinning, there's core, and then maybe Kev has gone, well, we're going to have a team session here for this group, so Year 9 girls, hockey players are on, so I don't know if that could help you, but he's got bespoke sessions for teams, but also just for the generalists, and then that has to filter into your PE program, because that is curriculum time.
I agree on the social media thing, it's just not out because you're seeing, you know, that there are certain students within our school and some of the messages that we were getting is, you've got to be big, and I completely go against it. You know, like I say, the kids at the end of the day, they don't have to be big. Are they able to be physically, functionally be able to move? That's number one priority. And then the fitness will come at the side of that. But, you know, the work that you do on your injury prevention and stuff, you know, the study that went out, I think there was a report last week or only the other day about the increase in ACL injuries in females particularly is like treble or quadrupled in only such a short amount of time. What are we doing for these girls? And it sort of harks back to what Lorcan said there about just because you've got a gym, you don't have to go and lift, you know. They have to be able to structure, be able to look after their own bodies. Otherwise, you're running the risk of ending a child's career, future career, before it's even started.
We're quite good at asking polarised questions. Should we or shouldn't we? Should we streamline or should we mix ability? The reality is when and how we use these. They're all tools, they're all part of our toolbox. And I'd say that outside of the school environment, if I was working in the coach education environment as well, we've got these tools. We don't need to polarise them. We need to, you know, it's back to the what works for who and what circumstances and why, and when and how do we use these tools. Yes, if there's a safety reason why we wouldn't want two people working together, we have to be mindful of that. But in which case, actively look for the opportunity for them to work together in a different opportunity.
I'm just going to, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to mention, everyone here will have an example of a student who in Year 7 might be the biggest child, the strongest, when we're thinking about sports like rugby. But we've always taken that mixed approach. Again, safety and the constraints are slightly different because they potentially might be more technical players. So by the time they get to an age of leaving school and one player relied on his strength for all them years and might not be as technically good, but that player's then grown, developed and matured later in life, because we all develop at different stages, he's then become a better player as a result of that ultimately moving forward. So I think, yeah, definitely the safety and the constraints, mixed abilities, so they can see what it takes to be that level potentially, but then also have the time in terms of to develop to that point.
It was just a tag on for the Warwick guy. I'll just speak on the set of microphones. I think we're same obsessed with these getting to A's, B's, C's, D's, and then they go and train on their own. But actually, possibly for those big lads, they train as a 4 when they're back at 7 bells like each other. But at the same time, every now and again, I was lucky to play at a high level. I'm only 5'11", having a tackle people at 130 kilos. Every now and again, they do need that exposure. We're finding that stretch for those kids in other areas that, okay, they've got big, then we're doing the testing through possibly a movement literacy or assault course or wrestling curriculum where they actually get exposed, but they realise that size is not everything. So they're challenging them in their appropriate ways where others can still develop themselves. So they feel exposed in other ways that they have to maybe down the weights and stuff. And I think there's I'm an independent sector school as well, and I'm a bit naive with the steroid use, but I'm pretty sure there's a few kids now taking, can't remember the name of it because they were teaching me about it, but something that replicates human growth hormone, which is giving them the results that isn't even tested for and stuff. So I think we have to be really careful. Therefore, our success criteria, what we put up in the gym and what we use to, so instead of size, the reactive strength index or the agility, so they've got a different focus, because we live in bubbles in these independent sectors. So actually we have a real opportunity to be culture architectures, to change the language, talk about performance being, I like that line of the best you can do with the gifts you have. That's performance, therefore there's no participation anymore. Everyone can be performance. You know, and what's an athlete? The guy from Nike says, you've got a body, you're an athlete. Done. So we can actually really sculpt it in our environment, be a positive role model. Instead of seeing it as something to fear, you guys see something that can excite us and change the rhetoric.
Well said, Nick. It should be a bit.
Right, one final question. James?
This is coming back to school strategy and thinking actually are schools actually the barrier to movement competency ourselves? So how willing are us as schools to deviate from the game? We talk about rugby, this, well actually, D's, C's, E, whatever, they don't like rugby. How willing are we to put fixtures on against people of tag or a different sport? Because in our context, we can't maybe field more than 2 teams, we won't get a fixture. So are schools actually, are we the biggest barrier to developing movement competency in children nationwide?
I think so. I think a game like rugby is certainly seeing that change. And I think suffering as a sport within school, never mind sort of globally, I sort of worry for the game of rugby within school. And I've got different. Listen, I played rugby. I loved it. It gave me great things, but I've seen it from a different side of the coin now of experience in a school where you've got these students, and if they don't like it, why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And does it have to be that way? No, it doesn't have to be that way. Look at what you've got in front of you. Give them the tools that gives them the chance to get the best out of themselves. And I think we've got to be a little bit more creative and work together, because I think independent schools, people's always scared to make that first step because they're either going to isolate themselves or the people will follow. But I think we've just got to be a little bit braver in our decisions for the betterment of the students and the children and LTAD. I think the way the rugby's going in the minute, there will be a slow change or maybe a rapid change. I don't know people's perception of contact sports within schools.
And I think as well for the strategy, to tag on to the back of that, I think the longer we define our school sport by the games that afternoon and by the fixture, the more we're going to struggle. I think if we were to talk about school sport as a collective, and that's why I think the names of the job titles, it used to be just director of sports, and actually it's not, well, we better tag on the health and fitness bit, because if we don't do that, we think it's just about the fixture, and I think schools have been defined by their fixture program. I mean, look, if someone goes, well, what's the, there's a great school, oh, it's a fantastic job, what's their sport like? I mean, no one's going to talk about the number of pupils running at a lunchtime, or the fact that everyone can swim 25 metres by the time they get to year 6, and that's they can run a mile in primary school, and that, by the way, if their thing is cardio, agility and strength, look at the data on that. No one's going to do that. They're going to go smashing the hockey team, nationals last year, rugby last year, wonderful. And I think the more we define our programs by the games afternoon and fixtures, the more we're going to struggle. I mean, something is desperately wrong when, this is just my own opinion, you can shoot me down here. Something is desperately wrong when you get to a pandemic like COVID and school participation numbers increase. Fitness levels for some schools went up. We went to conferences where, as a brilliant girl, Nikki from Coast, and she's a cracking girl. She's like, actually, you know what? She said, I'll say it. COVID was a great thing for us for a small period of time, and actually numbers of participants increased when we came back to school because we just didn't have that fixture program, and we had more kids doing stuff on Saturday because they wanted to be busy and active than we had the fixture program. So I think the longer we define what we're doing in terms of games, and that's difficult because we're under pressure, we're going to get VAT, we've got heads who want results and winning and success, and I just think we have to be brave and try and work with people and manage up to define what are your results. The swimming at 25 metres, the running a mile, the whatever it is you're doing, it's as important. And I believe this fundamentally, that if you sat in front of an assembly hall with 100 people from year 7, who's going to argue with you? What parents are going to say, I don't believe in that. I don't believe that physical development, that holistic culture, the swimming, the running, the connections, you play a fixture, the boss, the teamship, and then comes the game. No parent's going to argue. And I think I'd love to see more of a shift there. And for what it's worth, and I'd love people to come in and look at what we do and give feedback and you know, it's the Breakfast of Champions. We don't do everything great, GSAN. We're trying to. But we have loads of kids who are county, regional, national. We played some part in that, but clubs have played a bigger part. So we try to manage their time and their study skills and their mental skills. We try to add some value to help the child there. But you know, I just think we need to redefine it a bit more. Talking too much here, so sorry.
I think we'll put you extra 7 minutes over, but can we give David and Mark